Our position here must remain absolutely secure. We cannot afford any missteps with the Alliance.
Sergeant Daniel Okafor had been declared dead twice in his career. Once on a classified extraction in a war zone nobody talks about, and once, technically, on the Coalition's own casualty logs 3 days after the ambush at Keshen Ridge, when search teams found nothing but scorched armor plating and a crater where his unit used to be. The report filed by Lieutenant Vren Silikos was thorough, professional, and completely wrong. 11 soldiers. 1 position. A coordinated strike from the Yethari raiding clan. A group the Coalition had spent 6 years trying to negotiate with, bribe, or quietly avoid. The official record said there were no survivors. The official record had never met Daniel Okafor. He walked out of the Keshen foothills 4 days later carrying 2 pieces of broken Yethari plating, a fully charged plasma rifle that wasn't his, and an expression that the outpost medic later described in her notes as unsettlingly calm for a man who should be dead. "Sergeant," Vren said carefully, watching the man drink water like it was the most interesting thing he'd done all week. "The Yethari raiding party that hit your position numbered approximately 40. Our scans confirmed it before the ambush." "40's about right," Daniel agreed. "You were a unit of 11. "We were a unit of 11, Daniel said. "I was the part of the unit that didn't stop moving." Vren had served on this frontier for 9 years. He had seen humans before, cautious, polite, occasionally surprising in a research paper kind of way. He had never seen one come back from a 40-against-1 engagement looking like he'd had a long jog rather than a massacre. "I need a full account," Vren said. "For the report." "Sure," Daniel said. "Get comfortable." The Yethari hit the ridge position at 0300 local time, when the human sensors were calibrated for heat and the Yethari's bioluminescent camouflage ran cold. It was a smart plan. It had worked on 3 other outposts that year. Daniel's unit took the first volley and lost 6 people in under a minute. A brutal, efficient opening that would have ended most engagements right there. Daniel didn't think of it as an ending. He thought of it as information. "They came from the ravine," he told Vren, voice level, like he was describing terrain on a map rather than the death of 5 more friends. "Single approach vector. That told me they didn't expect anyone to survive long enough to flank them. They were committing everything to the kill, not the retreat. So you ran." "I repositioned," Daniel said. "There's a difference. Running is what you do when you've already lost. I hadn't lost yet. I just didn't have a unit anymore." What followed, according to the wreckage and the eventual forensic sweep, was less an escape and more a 4-day argument between one human and an entire raiding clan about who, exactly, was hunting whom. Daniel didn't have superior weapons. He didn't have backup. What he had was a species-deep, evolutionarily ancient relationship with being the underdog in a fight. Something Coalition tacticians had never bothered putting in a briefing because no one had asked the right question. Humans hadn't survived their own planet by being the strongest thing in the room. They'd survived by being the thing that adapted fastest when the room turned hostile. He used the ravine the Yethari trusted as a corridor and turned it into a choke point. He used the cold blind spots in their camouflage detection, something his unit's medic had mentioned once offhand weeks earlier about Yethari thermoregulation, and stopped moving entirely for 6 hours at a stretch, letting their sensors slide right past him. He took weapons off the Yethari he killed because ammunition runs out and curiosity about how the other side's gear worked had, historically, never killed a human faster than ignorance did. By the second day, the raiding clan wasn't hunting a survivor anymore. They were hunting a problem. "How many?" Vren finally asked. "Did you personally engage? Engaged or finished?" Vren paused. "Either. Engaged all 40 eventually in one configuration or another," Daniel said. "Finished fewer than that. Some of them figured out the math before I did and left. Smart of them." The medic, listening from the doorway, asked the question everyone in the outpost was thinking. "Why didn't you call for extraction the moment you were clear?" Daniel considered this honestly the way he considered most things, without performance, without the need to sound heroic about it. "Because the moment I was clear, they were still out there," he said. "And there's a version of this where I get picked up safe and they regroup and they hit the next outpost the same way they hit mine. I didn't have the rank to call that an acceptable outcome." "That wasn't your decision to make," Vren said, though without much conviction. No, Daniel agreed. It was just the one I made. The Yethari clan that hit Keshen Ridge does not exist anymore in any organizational sense. The survivors, and there were a few because Daniel Okafor had never been interested in extermination, only in making sure nobody else's outpost got the same 0300 wake-up call, scattered into smaller groups that, according to later intelligence, specifically avoid any sector with confirmed human deployment. Vren filed the corrected report 3 weeks later. Coalition Command read it twice, then requested a personal interview with Sergeant Okafor, which he respectfully declined on the grounds that he had already explained it once and didn't see the value in a second telling. The official coalition designation for the incident, eventually settled on by a committee that argued about it for longer than the ambush itself had lasted, was the Keshen anomaly. Daniel never called it that. When asked, years later, by a young recruit who'd heard the story secondhand and wanted to know what it had really been like out there alone against 40 hostiles, he gave the only answer that ever satisfied him. It wasn't really alone, he said. I had 11 years of training, 6 years of bad habits the Yethari didn't know about, and about 4 days where giving up just wasn't on the list of things I was willing to try. The recruit asked if he'd been scared. The whole time, Daniel said. Scared just wasn't the only thing I was.